Three.
Paul speaks a great deal about training the mind to think in a way that honors God, because our mind is a primary battlefield for spiritual warfare. On this episode of Afterwords with Pastor Adam, we talk about taking our thoughts captive. Stay tuned for more. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, this evening, this afternoon, this morning, or whenever it is that you may be tuning in today. This evening, we have a special guest with us. We have Trisha Hancock. Trisha comes to us, and what I call a ministry of help. I really think it is a ministry to be a counselor in any shape or form. When we talk about taking our thoughts captive, and sometimes we fall short in that, and instead of taking our thoughts captive, our thoughts oftentimes captivate us and hold us hostage. And it's people like you that come alongside of us in times of emotional or spiritual or um, I guess
Even physical.
mental
Yeah.
distress, and
Yes.
just help people find or see a way out of that darkness. So, Trisha, thank you for being here
Of
with us
course.
today. And if you would just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and how who you are and how you came to be who you are, what you
Um,
do.
well, again, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
My name is Trisha Hancock. I am a mother of four. So that's always my priority to say that out first. I am a counselor, but I am a mother of four and a wife to a husband. I've been married for almost 30 years.
Well,
So it's,
congratulations.
yes, absolutely. And just a long time ago, I feel like I wanted to help people. And I would find as my life went on from college and different things, people would always come to me,
Uh-huh.
and I wasn't raised Christian. So that's really important.
I
Um,
don't guess I knew that.
it's really
Wow.
important to
Okay.
know that about me because I think it gives it's a vantage point of both sides.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I didn't realize it was a calling, is what I'm saying. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that, but as time has gone on, and I was trained, like, gosh, 20 years ago. Yeah, I realized I wanted to use it for God. I realized I wanted it to be birthed out of the Bible, not out of just the normal psychology of things. So
Right.
I began the pursuit of a faith-based counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, um, as a pastor, I have had several people come to me and uh, what I what I can do and the way I can help people is just a scratch of the surface of
Hmm.
what you can do. And I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, can you refer me to somebody? I think I need to talk to somebody. I'm going through a dark time, and the spiritual stuff I've got answers for.
Of course.
I can help with
Sure.
that. But then when you start digging into people's emotions and you
Mhm.
start that kind of stuff, it is a calling.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
I know that it is something that God blesses and and the Holy Spirit has to work through you to be
Mhm.
able to do that, because you can't just go out here giving people advice because you'll
Absolutely not.
break them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, right,
Yeah.
right. And the reservoir does not run as deep with me as it does obviously with the Lord. So I
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. There are
r-
times that I literally I hear people talking, but I begin a conversation with the Lord right then and there
Hmm.
about what
Yeah.
they're saying and what He needs me to say.
To convey through you. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that
Yes.
because I see that a lot too, and we talk about that a lot here in church about how even in a Sunday morning service when we're preaching the word, that there's still prayer going on
Right.
while I'm preaching because
Absolutely.
God, give me the words to say next.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, um, but this, but it, going back to that, I've had people come to me and they have requested, we want a Christian counselor, and I know that there are people out there who prefer the other,
Sure.
but there are those that are in faith and in a walk with the Lord, and they would just prefer someone
Absolutely.
to. So I'm so thankful that God has blessed you with this because
Mhm.
um, this calling that you have in this ministry that you have of being a faith based counselor, it has affected our life, and it has found, and your ministry has found its way into our home.
Mhm.
And Adrienne, tell
Sure.
if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how
Sure.
Trisha came into our life. Now, you're probably going to leave something out. You're probably going to talk about counseling, but before you go there, let me say this: that probably in Lord, what was it? 2008,
19.
19.
19,
Mhm.
Nineteen.
Yep.
19. Trisha came and spoke at a ladies' day
Mhm.
that you had, and you hosted that, and that was a wonderful time. People still
Yep.
talk about that.
Yep. It was great.
So, and I think that was probably when you realized that you needed somebody to reach out to and somebody to talk to. That it was
Yeah.
like you knew right who to
Yes, I
call.
knew who to call, and then I guess I probably should back up a little bit, but and I've talked about this at church, recently, but I guess I've never really talked about this on the internet. So I sort of feel like I'm up here naked right now, but that's okay.
It's out there for everybody for all of
Yeah.
time.
So I just really started having, last year, really what I've come to learn is this was going on for a long time, probably, but really things started kind of coming to a head with me after I found out I was pregnant last year, which was the greatest, best miracle ever that will ever be in our life, other than, the salvation God has given me through Jesus. Other than that, nothing will ever be as great as the miracle of our sweet little daughter. But um, soon after I found out I was pregnant, I started having terrible anxiety. And it's a normal thing, I would assume, for every pregnant woman to have anxiety, but mine became very debilitating. And that's a big word, and that sounds dramatic, but it was literally debilitating. I could not do anything. I couldn't be alone, not for fear I would harm myself. Quite the opposite. I was afraid I would have a medical episode and I would be all alone,
You needed somebody there.
Yeah, so I just lived in with such horrible, debilitating anxiety that I needed help. You know,
Yeah.
I needed help. This was beyond something that I could do on my own, and I my OBGYN, my regular family doctor kept saying, maybe you should see a counselor. And that's very difficult for me, as we're going to talk about. It's sort of probably the theme of this discussion today.
Yeah.
But as a Christian and as a pastor's wife, we're usually on the other side of that
Mhm.
table. So that was very difficult. So I drug my feet. And then even somebody that came to church here um, knew you and had counseled with you before, and so I already had your name in mind, but I just wasn't ready to do it. And then it was kind of reassuring when she came up and said, hey, I know this lady, she helped me tremendously. So then that kind of got the ball rolling. I felt crippled in the season I
Yeah.
was in. The very best thing that could ever happen to me was happening to me simultaneously with this terrible, awful, worst season of my life. And they both can exist, I have come to realize.
Yeah.
So that is how Trisha came into our life.
And and again,
So
so
thankful.
thankful for
Yeah.
that.
Life, life changing.
Yeah.
Life changing.
Yeah. You said something, and you said it was hard. It was hard to say that you needed somebody to talk to.
Yes. Uh,
It,
Terribly hard.
yeah.
It's hard to still
This,
say that I needed that. I don't know why, but it
mm,
still is sometimes.
yeah. I think probably it was hard for you. I mean, I know it was hard for you to say it. For me, one of the biggest struggles with hearing you say that was I'm the pastor,
Hmm.
and what you were going through, I couldn't help you.
Yeah. My wife is so anxious and depressed, she can't even brush her teeth.
And
Wow, I can't help her.
Sure,
Yeah,
of
and
course.
I'm
and
sure.
and it's like, wait a
Mhm.
second, and here's something that I struggled with, Trisha, is there is a there is a passage in the Bible, and the the book and the verses slipped my mind, but people might know what I'm talking about. But anyways, um, the word says, "Have your house in order." before you lead, you know, God's
Mm.
house. And boy,
Sure.
that really weighed heavy on me because I was like, here my wife is and she's struggling and I'm supposed to have the answers and I don't. And um I battled with that. And then when she said, "Hey, I think I need to see I need to talk to somebody." That was a hard pill to swallow, but it was one that we both needed to we
Mhm.
both needed a dose
Mm.
of that medicine to be able to say, "Okay, we need an outside
Yes.
set of eyes and ears
Yeah.
and
And when
so
your husband is your pastor, it is like I can talk to you about anything and do.
mhm.
There's not a single thing that I can't talk to you about. But when your husband is your pastor, it's sometimes it's hard to go to your pastor, to talk to
Sure.
them when it's your husband. You need
Yes.
somebody else, you
Yes.
know?
I would agree. Agree with
Yeah.
that. Agree.
Do you think do you think people are just a thought. I think about this sometimes is in my line of in my line of work, being a corporate chaplain, I talk to a lot of people and I find out that when I sit down and have a conversation with people and they pour their problems out to me and they tell me what they're going through and things like that, I listen. But what I find out is that they already know what they need to do. They just need somebody to come alongside of them and say, "You're absolutely right." It's almost like they
Hmm.
just need a little assurance that you're on the right track. And
Well, and I would add on to that. They also need to know that possibly they can like that you can relate, like
yeah,
that you've been there.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I think that is so vital in counseling to connect humanity, to say, yeah, me too.
yeah,
Oh, because especially with being a pastor or a pastor's wife, that's my hopes of even this. Oh, because people
yeah,
sort of put you in a position maybe that they think maybe you've got it all together or everything's
Mhm.
right,
always,
yeah,
and I think to be able to say, no, absolutely, I know what you're talking about. We actually did this today, her and I, the
yeah.
same
So this is her second session with you
yeah,
Right.
but
today.
I mean, it was so
Yeah,
her face just brightened, and she was asking me about clients going through and being okay on the other side, and I said, "I can do you one better. I've been through what you through."
yeah,
So, and I'm on the other side
yeah,
because of what God did in my life, and so I couldn't be here necessarily relating to you in this moment the way I can if I hadn't been there as well. So
right,
I think that is as valuable. It's equally as valuable as just saying, "Yeah, I'll walk you through the corridors of your mind and say I'm listening and I've got you." But also, we can all relate to pain in some sort. It doesn't
yeah,
necessarily have to be the same pain. It just pain is meant to be respected and pain is meant to be related one to the other. I think that's
yeah,
beautiful. I
yeah.
mean, I don't love pain, but there is something very
There's something
beautiful
in it.
about it,
Yeah,
what God does.
And one of my favorite things you do that I don't know because I don't have this is my I'm new to counseling, but um, some don't talk about themselves and what they've been
Mhm.
through. And you do. And I told one of my friends that I said, "Oh my gosh, one of my favorite things about her is she'll say, 'Well, let me tell you this story.'"
Mhm.
And I need that. Maybe that's not for everybody, but I need that. And
Yes.
hitting on what you just said, you're so good to say, "Well, let me tell you about this that happened,"
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
whatever. You share very personal stories,
Yes, yes.
you know.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
I want to be that. I
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
ever want to be someone sitting in a chair with all the answers and elevated to something that's not real.
right,
And I've had counseling like that over,
yeah,
just doing my training, and then I've had great counselors who have told me stories that cause me to relax and think,
Mhm.
okay,
yeah.
I can do this.
Like I'm in the right place.
I'm in
This
there.
is the right person for me
Absolutely.
to be talking to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Um, s- I I just think about again, Adrian, going back to being so hard about saying you need somebody to talk to. I think one of the things that my desire and what I've been praying about and having you on this episode, Trisha, is that one thing I want people to take away if they sit down and if they will spend the hour or whatever length we go today, listening to this episode. What I want what I hope and pray that they take away from this is that it's okay to need help.
Absolutely.
It's okay to have something go, going, and not to sound cliche, but we hear it a lot. Like, it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
It's okay to pick up the phone and say, you know what, I need to make an appointment.
SOS.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
right, right. Yeah. Like, send help. I
Yes.
need it. And
Yes.
um me and Adrienne have talked about this in the last week, and maybe you can shine some light on this. But why is it? Uh, I might be asking a question you can't answer. It's a pretty broad question, but why is it that we as believers have such a hard time with saying, "I need somebody to talk to"?
Mhm.
I'm not just talking about like a pastor's wife, but I mean I can understand that a little bit, but
Yes.
just for the average person, I don't want to.
I'm an
Yeah,
average person.
right, but you know what I mean?
I do know
I'm
what
just
you
saying
mean.
Yeah.
I
I'm just
do.
saying
Yeah, the stigma.
yeah,
Yeah.
why is it so hard for us to come to a place where we say, "You know what? I admit that I need some
Mhm.
help."
I'm not fully I'm not fully sure why. I do run up against it a lot in my own church and different things. I don't know if I have the exact answer, but I do think sometimes it's more of a relinquishing of control a bit,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that
No,
ugly
oh,
because I have had my own counseling and still do. Chris and I still, if we hit a rock, we do that. So I think it's just sort of at this point in my life, what I found is you have to relinquish something usually, whether it's no matter what it is, to gain something from the Lord. And I just feel like sometimes it's this place of even we want to please God so much or we want to do the right thing,
yeah.
that we think, oh, but if I need help, then am I not doing the right thing? Am I not doing enough? Am I not reading enough? Am I not, and I think that's not it.
Right.
But, I know when I went through a dark time and I love these people and I don't this is hopefully this works out the story, but I remember people saying, "Well, have you fasted?" And I said, "Of course, yes."
Right.
Well, are you praying? Yeah, I
Yeah.
I am praying. You know, and I would feel very judged, and they didn't mean to. They were actually trying to help, but I already had those voices in my head
Mhm.
going of performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were doing anything wrong. I was already thinking that about me. So I think it's this. Sometimes counseling seems to just be this crossroads of I really can't do anything else, and I really have to relinquish all. Like
Yeah.
I can't just say it I am relinquishing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have said to me before, you can't just say, "I trust God and everything's gonna be fine." That's it. That's the answer. Of course, yeah, we
Of course,
trust God,
of course,
but it's almost like sometimes things are broken.
things are broken.
Sometimes things need fixed.
Mhm.
Sometimes chemicals are out of
That's
whack.
right. That's right.
And
That's right.
the idea of just like,
Yes.
get up, you're okay. God loves you.
Right.
Of course,
Of,
but
of course.
but it's more than that.
It is more than that. And it I think if you can just relax in the process, it's investigative in nature.
Yeah.
Like what is going on? What has been imparted to me that I didn't even know? And because all of that to me is hand holding with God.
Yeah.
God, why is this affecting me like this?
Right.
What do you know about my history that I don't remember? Or what loss did I not grieve? Or as you said, what maybe there's something physiologically that I need to go have answers to. There's just such a beautiful relaxation in the grace of God like
Uh-huh.
that. I do hit that stigma, but I also just, I feel like people get to the point where I cannot do this. And that is the most beautiful spot to be,
Mm.
that willingness to say,
Yeah.
I'm tapping out. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think, how long have you been doing this, by the way? I don't know if I've ever asked you
I
that.
don't know if I even can remember. I think I'm at 14 years.
Okay. Do you think there is more anxiety and depression floating around now? Do you think it's the same amount that's always been, but now people talk about it?
Hmm.
Because I just feel like, I was talking to a friend one day, and we'll get into some medicine things later, but,
Sure.
you know, she was trying to make me feel better because she's so good and that's what she does. And she
Mhm.
said, this weekend I was in a van full of women and they were going to, I think, a concert. And she said someone started talking about their anxiety, and every single woman in the car had this issue,
Mhm.
every single one. And she said, so I just want you to know that, there's nothing wrong with you.
That's right.
So many people,
Mhm.
struggle with
Mhm.
this. So are there more people that have anxiety, depression, whatever, fear, all the things now than before, or do
Mhm.
people just talk about it more?
I don't know the answer to that. It seems like it is more prevalent. It seems like COVID brought a lot of it to life,
Yeah.
if you
Mhm.
will, just with different generations and different um, mindsets about mental health work and counseling. So I think maybe we use the term more. I think it's both and. I think
Okay.
maybe we had it before we didn't have the term, but I also think on the flip of that, people use it to cover everything. So
Yeah.
it's readily used, so you hear about it a lot
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
well. So it's both and.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, you know, in my generation, and I don't know, might just be me, but and it might just be a man thing, but is like it's not okay to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
It Wait
That's
a
good.
minute, it's not okay to talk about your feelings. And if you are broken, you need to, one, suck it up and feel better. Um, and here's my favorite one. Oh, well, if that upsets you, don't think about that.
Or
Well,
calm down.
yeah,
Oh, don't tell me to calm down, please. When I'm in the
yeah,
middle of an anxiety attack,
right.
just calm down. Well, gee, I never thought of
I'm
that.
sorry. I'm guilty of that. And when you're
You
having
need to calm down.
when you're having your moments, I'm like, it's okay, just calm down. And I mean it in love.
What a great thought.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah. Yeah.
Do men have a harder time? Do you have like way more women
I
than
do.
men? Yeah, I
I
figured.
do. I do. I'm sorry, but I
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Come
I,
on, man. We got to get it together.
I do. But but
Yeah.
I've had beautiful, men come in and or marriage counseling. I love
Yeah.
Yeah.
that. Been a beautiful
Mhm.
thing. But I do have more women, or at least I have women who come first, and then
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah. Well, I think it's perceived as being weak.
It is. I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think there's men have to become very vulnerable. I
Mhm.
think for us, it has to get really bad.
Mhm.
Things things need to be really dark and really bad and almost you know
Desperate.
very
Mhm.
desperate for us to say, wait a minute, I don't have this together. Because
Mhm.
one, we don't want to seem weak to our spouse or to our family members, and the last thing you want to put in your kid's mind is, my dad's not home right now, he's at counseling,
Yeah. Completely.
and so
Yeah, it
Completely.
really does have a negative.
it does have a
Yeah.
It
negative
does.
um,
Why? Why in the
portrayal
world?
I don't.
because it's good,
It is.
Yeah,
It's
but
man,
it's
it's
not.
good.
But seldom is it something that's
Mhm.
applauded.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's and again that goes back to what I hope that people understand when they see this episode or listen to this is that one, it's okay to say that you need help, and it's okay to seek that and go out and get it, and it's not weak. It,
I think it's the
it's
opposite.
one of the strongest things to
It's
be able to say,
I think it's
I'm something's wrong,
help.
and
A-
yeah,
Absolutely. No, and I will say this as well. Not all counseling do we need to dig around in your childhood for 42 years and,
right,
not all of it is that. There are
right,
times when I see people that maybe they need coaching, maybe they need sorting, maybe, you know what I mean? I think that's part of the stigma is like, oh, my inner child, and we have to just do that.
right,
Yeah, sometimes we do have to look at what affected you and the decisions you make now. It's still affecting you, possibly. But not everything has to be, carrying like a 50-pound bag of heavy. It's not
right,
all like that. So I
right,
do want to be able to voice that to people. It can just simply be sorting. Like
yeah,
maybe I have a teenager and there's a lot with that. And I just want to, run something past someone else. That is
yeah,
counseling as well.
right. You know, do do you believe that people are farsighted? And here's what I mean by that. Um, being farsighted is not having the ability to see something when it's close to you. So I think that sometimes when I'm going through something, I don't see it, or the people around me don't see it because they're so close to me.
Good.
And what I need in that moment is an outside set of eyes
That's good.
that can show me something that I'm not able to see right now. And again, that goes back to I think, people just need that coaching or that sorting
Hmm.
or saying,
Hmm.
"Hey, this is what I as an outsider looking in,
Completely.
you can't see this because you're in it.
I would agree.
But let me tell you what I see."
Right. No, I
And
think that's beautiful, and I think it's reflective, and I think it's because I often say I have no dogs in the race, so I can give a completely non-judgmental
right.
look.
Yeah.
I
Sort of like when you told me to stay in my own yard.
maybe could be a little bit
Maybe.
like that.
You said, let Adam have his backyard and you have your backyard.
Yeah.
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 But it was good.
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
never, I would, in seriousness, I would have never, I can't see that. I can't see that
Right.
Yeah.
because I'm
Right.
living that.
Right.
Right. Right. Yeah. And yeah, I just, I love it in that regard. And I do tell people this. I have had counseling. You cannot be a counselor without having your own. And
Yeah.
so my children, 3 of the 4 I've sent somewhere because, they don't take that from me very well, but because I
Right.
so value what you're saying, the different set of eyes,
Yeah.
so value another godly set of eyes. I value it with my whole heart.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying godly set of eyes. Because I think one of I think one of the big problems that a lot of people dig themselves into when seeking help is they pick up the phone and they call anybody who will listen to them. And not all advice is good advice. And not not all good advice is godly advice.
I agree.
And so do do your research and make sure the person that you're
Yeah.
pouring your
Hmm.
and you can't just let everybody speak into your life.
Absolutely not.
So,
Absolutely not. I would agree with that.
like,
And I just want
go
to
ahead.
say, as somebody who's one of your clients, you know, a, just because you're a Christian counselor doesn't mean that, it's like you're in a place, I think, of where God's word and science meet up. You
Absolutely.
talk about
Perfect.
my brain and chemicals and, levels of this and that. Also, and you do that with God's word as well, So it's not like I would like people to know that just because you're a Christian counselor doesn't mean that science goes out the window
Right.
too.
No,
Like you
absolutely
talk
not.
about the reasons why,
Yes.
like this part of your brain is stuck
Mhm.
open. You're stuck in fight or
Yes.
flight, or,
Absolutely.
like, so just,
That's so good.
it's
I'm
like
glad
it's a
that you said that.
mashup between God's word and science. That's how
Hmm.
I feel about it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted,
I absolutely feel that way. And I also, want to encourage people too. When you start the process of seeking help, if you find yourself sitting with someone and they're great, but they're not the right fit, don't
Yeah.
just throw the baby out with the bathwater. God has people designed, I believe, for you.
Yeah.
So I don't, you know what
Absolutely.
I mean? I
Yeah.
that is pretty much my first statement out of my mouth. You may think, oh, she's nice, but it has to be this alliance. It has to be this,
Yeah.
I believe it's God. It has to be this space where he wants you with me, and what I have is what he needs me to give to you. But if I'm
Right.
not it, don't stop the process of looking
Right.
for
Yeah.
somebody who
And
is.
let's not force this.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
you're not going to be effective and I'm not going to receive anything
Nope.
from it.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I called you to tell you that I needed help,
Hmm.
I can remember I was sick. I had no voice. So I was squeaked you a voicemail out, and you sent me a message back and you said you were packed. And
Yeah.
I think I had to wait over a month. And at this point in time, I needed somebody every single week.
Hmm.
And you said, I don't want you to wait. You know, um, you gave me a list of names, I
Hmm.
believe. And I said, are these Christian counselors? You said yes. And you said, I don't want you to wait. Get in with somebody.
Sure.
If you like them, stay with them. There's no obligation to come back to me.
No.
So the person that I went to would not have been a fit for me. She was good.
Mhm.
I had no issue with her,
Sure.
but it was so different when I sat down in front of you. It
Mhm.
was different, So if I would have let that be my only experience, it would not have probably been good.
You could
Right.
probably give up.
So I was so glad that I went on and you said, "Hey, I'll go ahead and make an appointment," but it was over a month away.
Mhm.
You know, if you want to cancel it, cancel it. But I'm so glad that I kept it because at first I didn't, I didn't get, I got some things out of those first
Sure,
meetings,
sure.
and they were good for me in that interim time.
Yes.
But if I would have stopped at that,
Right.
I
Right.
wouldn't be where I am now.
Right.
I don't think. So, but it was a fit. It was a
Mhm.
puzzle piece when
Mhm.
I sit down in
Mhm.
front of you for me.
Yeah. And I want everybody to prayerfully go into it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. You know, when we talk about that and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and being a good fit and making sure that you're what God wants for Adrienne and vice versa, and you can be effective for her. Prayerfully consider that too. And I know that I prayed. I prayed beforehand. Um, I Adrienne wanted to call you and seek that first appointment, and 100% I was okay with that, supportive of that. But also in my prayer time, I was in prayer. Lord, if Adrienne needs help and I cannot help her, and it's breaking my heart as a husband and it's breaking my heart as her pastor to not have the answer she needs. Please, if Trisha is not it, tell us who is. And that's,
Mm.
and praise God, you were it and you're just
Mhm.
down the road.
Right.
Um,
Worked out well.
but again, you have to prayerfully consider it, and you can't just let anybody speak into your
And
life.
yay God for going before us. How many
Making a
ever
way
years
14
before
years
that,
ago, yeah.
how many ever years before when you came and spoke
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
had no clue that I was going to need you in that
Mhm.
in the capacity that I have, God already knew that.
Yeah.
He knew we'd be sitting here today.
Um, a question, and I don't, again, I'm you may not know, but do you think that when a person deals with anxiety and a person deals with depression and this and that, do you think there's ever a time where um, outside of God just intervening and touching them and giving them a complete healing over that, do you think we ever get over it? Or do we just find a way to live with it and cope with it and find a new way to move in it? Like, yeah, the reason I'm saying that is because I know there's instances where it's like, man, I'm going through a season right now,
Mhm.
and seasons are sometimes long and they're sometimes short. And someone might say, well, what I'm going through is just a small window a window, and maybe I need some help right now. Just because someone signs up for counseling doesn't mean that they have to do that for the rest of their
Oh,
life.
no.
You're not in that
No,
for the
that's
long haul.
actually the goal is for them to go on and do what they need to do without
Mhm.
me. That's the good
Yeah,
goal.
that's the big picture at
Mhm.
the end,
Mhm.
and it's not something that they have to be in for the rest of their life, but you're there for that if they need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm. How much how much of this do you think, or is it a even split? How much of the things that we go through is circumstantial, and how much do you think is um,
Like
health
chemical or
chemical?
health related.
Do you think I believe, and what we read here um, in our scriptures for Sunday morning service just yesterday was we was talking about Paul and taking every thought captive, and he talks about a war, and he says it's a spiritual battle. And sometimes the things that we go through that we need counseling for, I believe, are sometimes are circumstantial. Sometimes it's a
Absolutely.
problem that you're having at home with your spouse, or your kids are running buck wild and you
Mhm.
don't know, you don't even
Absolutely.
know where to start.
Absolutely.
Or then maybe it's circumstantial, maybe it's relational. But then there's sometimes that you have not done anything and no one in your life has done anything.
Mhm.
There is just this battle that is
Absolutely.
happening,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's spiritual.
And
Right.
I do not know what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's right. I can't really tell you how many times it's one or the other. It's just almost dependent upon the person sitting in front of me. But I think again, it goes back to being investigative in nature.
Right.
It goes back to sitting with the Lord, sitting with a faith-based counselor, and allowing. I always say it's sort of like this picture. It's like stepping into the shallow part of a lake. When you first step in, all that sediment bubbles up around you. That to me is what counseling is. So
Yeah.
whatever kind of floats to the top, I feel like that's what God's dealing with. That's what he needs you to deal with.
Okay.
That could be circumstantial.
Yeah.
It could be your serotonin levels off, and you've just went through something traumatic, and you've used it all for that, and your adrenal glands are fatigued. Could be that,
Yeah.
but I think you just kind of have to step in and see what
See
bubbles
what
up.
comes up. Yeah.
hmm and I always tell people I believe God is so in that moment because whatever is happening, if you can't define it, He will.
Yeah.
You just have to step in and see what comes
Right.
up.
Yeah. But you got to take the step.
You got to take the step.
Yeah.
hmm
Mm. I'm so glad you did. You are, and not to throw your business out there, but you are so far ahead of where you were a couple years ago. I mean,
Yeah, like then last year at this time, is this March? I'm gonna say that's like around the time I called you, maybe March, but I had spent a few months just debilitated. I mean, I had to be dropped off at my mom's every day like I was a little baby going to the daycare,
yeah,
because I was just so non-functioning. It was terrible, and I was pregnant, and so
it was a rough season.
I feel like a different person. And when you get in that, me, I can't say everybody, me, anxiety turned to this terrible fear.
hmm
You know, I spent, and I mean this, I mean this just as I'm saying it. Every second of the day, I thought I was going to die. I thought I'm getting ready to die every second of the day. And I've decided living in fear is worse than living in pain for me.
Right, right.
It has to be the worst way to live. But, I went from that to, it kind of, I guess I kind of sunk into a depression of sorts, which I didn't really know, but, it became like a hopelessness. Like, I'm going to be like this forever.
Right,
And
right.
last year at this time, if you would have asked me if I would feel like this now, I would say no. I honestly felt so hopeless. And then I felt so guilty because God, here I was in the very best season of my life as far as what He has given me,
Right.
you know, and I just didn't know that I would be like this now. And, gosh darn it, sometimes I do see it as a gift now. You kept saying, like, this terrible season is a gift. Like, God's given you two gifts, this sweet little baby and this dark season you're walking through, because through all that, I just, He prepared us for that scary long stay in the NICU after our baby was born. And I know we talk about this a lot. Like, I certainly know we're not the only people who have been through this, but, it was just like, I kept thinking, if I can get to this point, this will be better. Well, then this happened, and then this happened. Then we had a baby who had, what seems to me the worst colic that ever existed, right?
Oh, it was.
No baby on earth's ever had colic as bad as our baby.
That colic was biblical. It was.
And that was really hard for 4 months, and then she had tummy troubles. Anyways, and that certainly doesn't make us unique. But she had a lot of issues starting out. She's great now, but still a fussy baby. But she's good. But it was like, really, it was a gift, and it was preparing me for all these different things. But at the beginning of this, I certainly wouldn't have seen it as a gift, and I definitely thought, what is wrong with me? I am a Christian woman. I'm the one everybody comes to. I'm always standing up here telling everybody how to live their life.
Totally.
And I can't
Yes.
even make my bed because
Sure.
I'm so anxious.
Sure.
I can't even, I am pacing the floors. I'm literally flapping my arms and screaming and crying because I just know I'm going to die,
Sure.
So I definitely felt like, you know, there's something wrong. I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor's wife. I'm a leader. I have all this under control
True.
normally.
You're a doer.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
a doer.
A doer.
And I felt like as a Christian, I'm not supposed to be going through this like this. It is I trust God. He loves me. He hears me. He's going to fix me. My baby's going to be fine. Well, duh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I know you shared a story you wanted to slap somebody one time when they
Probably.
told you something like that. And like you say, as Christians, why in the world are we so judgmental
Yes.
to other Christians? Why did
Right.
I feel? And everybody in this building. Well, I hope everybody in this building loves me and supports me. I'm sure there's some who don't, but most of everybody here was wonderful about it. They come
Absolutely.
Yeah.
alongside me,
Absolutely.
they helped me, but why did I feel so judged? And why did I feel like I was less of a Christian because of
Right.
this?
Right. And I think some of that is birthed out of for you and for me. It's birthed out of us. It's birthed out
Yeah.
of how we judge ourselves
Mhm.
first,
Yeah.
and then we
Mhm.
put that on people.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
not, just God makes us to be doers and leaders and lovers of life. And then when it starts to fall apart and you can gather it, it's like, I've got this. And then it falls apart and you cannot gather it. It jolts you where you second guess yourself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think then we go into performance mode and we go into judgment mode, high criticism on me. I
Yeah.
can be my worst critic. People may not be thinking about me the way that I think they're thinking about me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I do think there's that element to it. Back to your point of, is it circumstantial or I, it's a lot of things,
Right.
but all so worth being looked at and brought
Mhm.
to the surface. I just think it makes us, when we can integrate our quote unquote great parts and then our not so hot parts, the parts
Yeah.
that we hide, that first of all lets you know you need a savior.
Yeah.
Because I
Absolutely.
am,
Yeah.
there won't be a time when I will be magnificently
You're fine.
perfect,
Mm-hmm.
right? There won't
Right.
be that time here on earth. So
Right.
if I can pull all my parts into myself and know that first of all I need Him because I
Yeah.
am broken, and second of all, it helps us relate one to another better.
Yeah.
And it just I don't know, I think it's beautiful. That's my favorite thing about counseling is we try to strong arm those parts of us that why can I not do this and why am I not doing a better job? And I think the Lord's like, babe, come
Mhm.
on now. Let's just, I
Yeah.
mean, this part is maybe like Paul, what I want to do, I don't do, and what
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't want. It's that moment of like God's like, I know, but that keeps you coming back to me.
Right.
Mhm.
The Lord says that keeps you coming. That's close. That's where we talk.
Mm.
I love that.
Yeah. And it was also Paul who said, um, "It's in my weakness that He's made strong."
Absolutely,
And that's the brokenness.
it
It's
is.
like when we understand how broken we are, that's when we truly see how perfect He is
Absolutely.
and our need for Him. And yeah, what a
So my question would be, what do you tell? Two questions. What do you tell somebody? What would you tell somebody? I'm talking to Christians here that are having a terrible time, as I was, and it could be anxiety, it could be depression, whatever kind of thing it is. Um, what do you tell somebody when they, feel like I'm not trusting God. There's something wrong. I've done something wrong. Like God can fix this. Well, of course He can. There's no way that I need to seek help. So, number one, what would you tell somebody of that? And number two, what would you know, as a Christian, we judge people worse than people who aren't Christians, which is something I don't understand. It should be the opposite of
Completely.
that. We should
Right.
be the most loving, forgiving, understanding people. But what do you tell somebody who is receiving criticism for, like, hey, you're a believer. God's got this. You're okay. Calm down,
Mhm. Well, the first question, what would I tell somebody who doesn't want to seek help or who wants to seek help?
Let's say they feel like they should, but then they might have this sort of rub of, but I'm a Christian and
Okay.
God is supposed to I'm
Mhm.
just supposed to trust God,
Right,
you
right.
know?
Well, I would say in that, trusting God is actually seeking help. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a
Yeah.
counselor is one of the names of the Holy Spirit. I think,
Wonderful,
Ooh.
wonderful
right,
counselor.
right.
Oh,
So I
Yeah.
kind of
yeah.
think when people come to me and if they start battling in front of me with that question, I believe I always say the person who sits in that seat, how beautiful it is that God is allowing you to
Yeah.
see some stuff to work on. That must
Mm.
Mhm.
mean he's pursuing you. I
Right.
find it to
Yeah.
be that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers it, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my answer is well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done just sitting here starting this. Well done.
It's a big
That
step.
it's a big step and
Mhm.
I so value that. I don't ever take that for granted when somebody sits. I've sat in that chair. I understand the vulnerability. I understand the thinking, "Gosh, why can't I figure this out? And Lord, why haven't you taken this away or what?" I understand that moment, but I see it as well done. I mean,
Mm.
here we are. God is pursuing you because you heard him enough to sit in that seat and start this process.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mhm.
Um, Second question, of which I have 4 kids, so my brain is all,
Like,
Yeah.
what was
Say
the
it again.
question?
what would you say if, you know,
Oh, if somebody
people
else
who
is
is
criticizing
receiving
them.
criticism about that? Because that does happen as
It
Christians. Like,
does.
ooh, like God is, God's got this. You must not be trusting him,
I do, and I have a couple it's funny, I have a couple of college kiddos right now whose parents, great Christian family, but they're like, "You're not reading your word enough."
Mm.
Mm.
And I feel for them because 'cause I'm never gonna criticize a parent. I mean, they're not that would be unfair. That's not fair to do, but I do say, you know I think the fact that sometimes God leads us down different paths,
Yeah.
that's okay. Maybe He hasn't led your parents to counseling, and that is completely okay. But because you are here, maybe He's calling you to it for something we cannot see right now. So
Mhm.
I try to just kind of lead them on like a walk of it's okay what you're feeling. And I'm sorry that's really hard that people are criticizing. But again, you're sitting here.
Mhm.
You can do this, and God has put a mantle maybe on this moment for you to do something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
proper answer,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, it
No,
is.
it is. And I think too, um, there is not only the criticism of having, you know, maybe that you put on yourself of, oh, you know,
Mhm.
I feel like I should have it all together
Mhm.
and I shouldn't ask for help. But there's also this too of, I want to go to counseling. I think I need it, but my spouse doesn't want me to go because he or she doesn't want me to hang our laundry
expose,
out on
right?
the
Yeah.
line. You know,
Yeah.
that means we're bringing a stranger
Yeah.
into our world
Absolutely.
and who might have something bad to say about me or what I'm doing. And that's a hurdle to get over too.
It is. It is a hurdle. And, we all fear exposure, but
Right.
I don't think I can really, I do the onset. I tell people, the only time that I can upend this moment is if you are harming yourself or someone is harming you.
Right.
Yeah.
If your spouse comes in tomorrow, I cannot upend you in front of him.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm not, the confidentiality runs deep
Yeah.
Mhm.
and it is secure.
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, it is there's
Yeah.
the fear of exposure
Hmm.
that kind of comes with it. But I think it also brings this vulnerable space of, oh, we
Yeah.
might have to really look at some stuff that we're
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm bound by that confidentiality too. And that is the rule of, it's only if someone is going to hurt themselves or
Mhm.
someone is hurting them. And that's the only time
Absolutely.
we can, share. But um I just think that there's a big trust there of, I
Mhm.
know you say this is confidential, but I'm gonna have to trust you on that.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna tell you some pretty dark
Absolutely.
stuff. and
Absolutely.
and yeah. um
And I've talked to you about this before. I can only relate a little bit, but you know, as a counselor, you carry a lot of stuff.
I was just getting
You
ready to
know,
ask you.
I've talked to her about this
Mhm.
because we, experience this a bit. And then I learned
Absolutely.
a long time ago, I can't carry anybody's stuff. Only God can do
That's right.
that. Like I'm laying this down. But there must be a sense of responsibility, even
Mhm.
though it's not.
Mhm.
But
Right.
and you just carry a lot of people's stuff
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
What do
Yeah.
you do with that?
What's your out?
Um, my out is it. I mean, probably only less than 5 times has this ever happened. Have I had somebody tell me something so dark and so gripping, maybe childhood abuse,
Yeah.
that I have actually had to call my husband later without names, still
Yeah.
confidentialities
Right.
upheld, nobody
Right.
knows, but just get it up out of me,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
to release it so somebody else shoulders it with me.
Yeah.
But I
Hmm.
mean, maybe 5 times that
Yeah.
has happened. Most of the time, I make sure that because it's not about me in there. So I don't take it on. I take it on in the session. I think about it. I pray about it. I brushing my teeth in the morning. I pray for people before the people on my calendar. I'm in it to that degree. But I don't mean this cliche, but I really do. It's not a, it's about what God's doing. So
Yeah.
I kind of just feel like I'm the middle guy in there.
Yeah.
So the responsibility is ultimately his and it's ultimately there. I tell everybody the work that you have to do is outside of this room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you have a lot of hard work that you're
Mhm.
going to, that you do outside of this space. So
Hmm.
Yeah.
I feel I don't know. I feel like I'm able to facilitate it by holding a real boundary in my heart to I can only go in my yard and do what God's asked me to do. But after that, you have to, in a community or with your family that can undergird some of that.
Yeah. I'm a little bit jealous. I'm a little bit jealous of you for already figuring that out because I've been in ministry for over 20 years now, and
And you're still carrying around everybody's
and
stuff.
and I'm still carrying stuff that I heard in the first year
Yeah.
because I think we have to know. And you said it best when you said, "Well, I've set a boundary," and it's I guess there's just a desire in me to to want to ease someone else's pain,
Absolutely.
and so well here uh, I'll carry it.
Absolutely.
And so you know, yes, I want God to use me to be able to lighten someone's load in some way,
Absolutely.
give me words to speak that's going to
Hmm.
make them feel better. But sometimes a lot of my prayer um, is God
Absolutely.
broaden my shoulders so I can carry this.
Right.
But I also know that that's not healthy
Mm.
and it's not fair.
Yeah. God
It's not
doesn't want us to do that.
no, it's he's the one we should be casting our worries and our
Absolutely.
anxieties and our
Absolutely.
cares upon. But to do that and to carry the load of everyone that we speak to throughout the day or the week or the month, whatever, it's not fair for me to bring that home to Adrienne and Finley.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
good for you for
Yeah.
figuring that out. And
Well,
I'm
I mean,
praying
it's
about
it's
that.
been a minute. It's
Yeah.
taken, and it doesn't mean, please don't. I hope that didn't sound
No.
callous. I
Mm-mm.
Uh-uh.
I feel. I mean, when I'm in there, I'm crying. I
Feeling it.
feel. I just know that I wouldn't be productive if I literally took it down in me to
Yeah.
carry it and to start fixing it. That's the issue. I
Yeah.
can't fix it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where I think the
Hmm.
verbiage is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Is like
Hmm.
my boundaries, like I can't fix it, but
Mm.
I'm in it. I'm all in it with you, but I also know that it's between you and the Lord ultimately.
Yeah. Amen. Um One thing else that I would like to get to this evening is Adrienne hit on it just a few moments ago. Just your opinion.
Hmm.
How do you feel? There, of course, there's different kinds of thoughts that we have: the anxiety, the depression, the worry, the fear. Um, the Bible, the Bible calls them different things. The Bible will just call them strongholds,
Hmm.
maybe.
Hmm.
Um, some of them are spiritual, some of them are circumstantial, some of them are relational. How do you feel about combating those with medication?
Hmm. Absolutely. I
because this is
Yeah,
there's
this is the big stigma
It
for
is, right?
especially for Christians.
It
okay,
is.
okay,
It
so
is.
I'm a
Yeah.
Christian, I'll go talk to somebody,
Right.
Like
but don't
somebody's
tell
gonna
me.
listen to this and be really mad about it.
Uh-huh.
What we're
Yeah,
gonna talk about as
I
Christians.
know, and
They're not
that's
gonna agree.
I'm gonna put your
no.
number on the bottom. I'm kidding. But yeah, so what?
In red.
Yeah,
Please do that.
yeah.
No, again,
And I didn't
because
mean to put you on the
oh
spot.
no, I
If it,
actually love this
yeah,
topic. This
Mhm.
actually, I
I
love
think it's
this topic
important.
because again, it's I did go through that when after I had my fourth kiddo. My husband travels a lot. I started feeling really like I could not get out from under the way I was feeling. Like I was, like I can do this. I can, pull
yeah,
myself up and that's when I started getting the not so helpful comments of fasting and prayer, which I was doing, but I could not get release.
yeah.
Could not get release from it. And I found myself, I've told Adrienne, I was at Walmart and I bumped into him or something and they were like, "Are you okay?" Meaning I didn't aim to hurt you, and I lost it. I started bawling. They were like, I mean, they just barely touched me, and they
They
were
probably
like,
thought, "Oh, great, she's gonna sue us."
right, like, whoa, woman, what? So I thought, okay, this is enough. Like,
Yeah,
but prior to that, I walked in that same stigma.
Mhm.
My pastor, actually, at the time, he had to get on a little bit of medication for a little while, and it was so beautiful, and I'm so blessed that God allowed me to do that because
Mhm.
yeah,
for 6 to 8 months, I was on a little something I couldn't get my bearings. But
yeah.
what I realized quickly is my adrenal glands, your hormones prop you up. They were in the negative. They could not every day produce what my body needed. So
Okay,
every day I woke up to start a new day and to get a healthy feeling of adrenaline and we couldn't, they were like in the negative 20, so they couldn't even get up to the zero.
right.
Well, that medicine sometimes or all the time, whatever, I land in the middle. That is my opinion. I think God gives us science. I think
Hmm.
God, if I have something wrong with my kidney, do I pray about it? 1,000%. But do I also go to a doctor to help? 1,000%.
Right.
I land right here on medicine. And I have told a lot of people it does not have to be a life sentence.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now, if it is, no harm, no foul in that either. If your body will never make dopamine again, okay.
yeah.
That I mean,
There's something that will help you.
there's something that will come alongside biologically to help.
Right.
God made that.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
truly feel that way. Now, do I think everybody should, every time I have, a child that just is disruptive in school, we slap them on meds? I do not. I do
Yeah.
not. Now that I'm sure people are
Right.
not going to love
I
that. I
agree.
don't
I
agree with
agree.
that.
I
Yeah.
I
agree
Yeah.
with
think
you.
there's some let's do deeper work and
Yeah.
see what we're
Yeah.
dealing with. There's
Yeah.
the investigation of counseling again.
Yeah. And maybe too we're too quick sometimes to
Sometimes.
pull out the prescription pad,
Agreed. No,
and
agreed.
say, well, this kid's hyper, so let's
Slap.
calm him down.
Yep.
And then when he's too calm, we'll pep him up.
No,
And
I agree.
you
Don't
know,
you
That's
say like you've worded it the same way to me a couple times. You don't think it should be the first resort, but
right.
you know,
I think it should be investigative in nature. I think go to counseling, see
yeah.
what's going on. If
right.
you have a proper counselor, they will be asking you questions that lead them to think maybe they need to go see a doctor. Maybe
Yeah.
they need to go see a psychiatrist. Maybe have you checked your hormones, 50-year-old woman? Maybe I mean,
Maybe you need to have a panel done that
yeah,
tells
that's my
you,
job
yeah,
is to sort of start fact finding and not everything that, in this chair, I am not expert of all things. I am quick to farm you out to whom I think can help.
Mhm.
I
right.
think that's a good counselor. I
Yeah.
think that's my job. So it's investigative in nature. I land in the middle. I think it's necessary,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's a life sentence unless it is. Unless your doctor says, on your panel, your body's not producing proper.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's such a probably a vague answer, but
No.
I
No.
literally stay down here in the middle. I don't
Yeah.
swing to, I if God will heal you. Absolutely. I've seen
Mm.
it done.
Yeah.
So, but I also if it's not and if it requires something else, I think that's God as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think God can use anything to heal us. He can use
Absolutely.
medicine, he can
Doctor.
use counseling, he can use
Totally.
nothing at all,
Exactly.
so
Feel the same.
Yeah.
for someone who doesn't have social media, I don't post pictures of myself on
Mhm.
the internet. I'm very private in that matter. Um, it's a lot for me to set here, but that's the point I got to. And my regular doctor told me, first go to counseling. That was her first thing. And then after that happened, she was saying, I think it's time for
Mhm.
medication. And then my OB was saying, I think it's time for medication. And I was so nervous. Like, first of all, I would be nervous physically to take this medicine
Absolutely.
anyways.
Absolutely.
Not to
Right.
mention I was pregnant. So that
Absolutely.
is the most terrifying thought ever. And you throw anxiety on there, you don't know up from down. You just can't figure out,
Totally.
and you always tell me anxiety begets anxiety. And
Mhm.
that was really happening. So, my two doctors told me you need to be taking medication.
Right.
My OB even said, research has found that it's more damaging, like your mental state is more
Mhm.
damaging on this baby than you taking a low
Right.
dose of a safe
Right.
medication.
Sad.
So I still didn't do it. So I was
I
in
know.
sessions with you.
And I know.
And
It
then
was
I
sitting on
said,
the shelf. It was
yeah,
sitting on the
well, before
countertop.
this, before
Yeah.
I even got it, I can remember I said, how, I told you all this many times. And then I said, but, how do I know it's time to take medicine? And you said to me, it's time.
Right.
It's time.
Right.
And I remember saying, okay. And I just started
Yeah,
crying
you
because
did.
I just felt defeated.
I know.
I
Yeah.
was
I know.
defeated. Like, what have I done wrong?
I
What is
know.
wrong with me? Other
know.
people go through this. And then, so I got the medicine. And as you know, I had it over a month before
do
I would
know.
take it.
That's okay.
Baby steps.
Yeah. And so
That's okay.
finally I took it. And, gosh, I mean, I felt like a terrible mother. I could get emotional talking about it now. I felt like a terrible mother. I felt like a terrible Christian at that time. And you explained this to me. My doctor explained this to me. And you even talked about during pregnancy, like how much, I think you said it's like I'm standing and they've literally opened up the floodgates and everything's rushing through me to get to her. And I just have to stay in there.
That's right.
It's all rushing,
That's right.
And so, anyways, I finally took it, just cried and felt terrible and prayed over my baby constantly, even more. And then I can remember on day 12 telling you, I got up and I thought, I'm going to make my bed today. And that seems like a normal thought for a person, but that was not where I was at.
Right.
And
Exactly.
it was like a tiny, tiny glimmer of like, oh, that was a normal thing for me to do, that I wanted to make my bed because that's who I was before,
Right.
And I guess it's not dramatic to say it changed my life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
God used it to help me,
Absolutely.
at the time. And I thought I'm going to be on this forever. And hey, maybe I will be. I don't know,
Right. Right.
and I'm very low dose and we're
Mhm.
still figuring that out,
Right.
Um, but it was such a shameful feeling
I know.
Yeah.
as a
I
Christian,
know.
so bad enough, like Christians, I mean, the going to counseling, but boy, when you start talking about medication,
Sure.
it really ruffles feathers. People
It
have
does.
strong opinions about it,
And it's mind blowing to me because we don't have as many strong opinions about blood pressure medicine
Right.
or so
Yeah.
it's interesting that
Yeah.
we don't have the same stigma. But what I loved about what you said is you had people confirming it. It wasn't
Yeah.
just like the counselor, like,
Yeah.
hey, just go take
No.
some meds.
Yeah.
This person, that's the proper way it should go.
Hmm.
You should,
Yeah.
if your child, if you think they need medicine, and we've gone to counseling, and and we kind of assess situations, and your doctor does a panel, and you can see, where something's everybody will confirm.
Yeah.
One person shouldn't be dictating
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah.
Lord will make it clear for you in that
Absolutely,
way.
I
Yeah.
think so too.
When you told me it's time, that's why I started crying, because it was like, okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
okay.
Right. But you
You
did,
know.
but I love that about you. I mean, I know you're hard on yourself, but I love that you were patient. I love that you know yourself enough, even in your fear, to say, I'm going to sit with this for a second. I'm going to
Mhm.
pray. I mean, I think that's beautiful,
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I love what you said, Tricia, about how if you had something with your kidneys, you would go to the doctor. And if I had, and you said there's not that stigma about blood pressure medicine. And if you've got something wrong with your heart, you'd take a pill for that. And so if you've got something wrong with your mind, why
Mm.
would you not be okay with taking a
Right.
pill for that? And we've talked about it, we've covered it, that God has given us all of these great resources. He's given us counselors, he's given us doctors, he's given us medication, he's given us different kinds of treatment processes, and all of those resources are at your disposal to use when you need them.
Mhm.
And like you say, taking that step into the pond and seeing that sediment, it all starts with that first step. There is nothing wrong. It doesn't make you less of a Christian, doesn't make you unfaithful or a bad believer or a bad spouse or husband or wife, whatever. You know, it's, I think it just makes you human
I think it makes you.
because we all go through these things.
Yes.
We all go through these things. And you said your pastor, there was a time in his life when he needed it,
Mhm.
and there was a time in my life when I
Mhm.
needed it. I was
Mhm.
going through a season, and I was medicated for it. um Not, it's not always a life sentence,
No.
because mine was just for a season, but I needed something in that moment,
Mhm.
in that season, to help me get through what I was going through, because I couldn't handle it on my
Right.
own.
Right.
you know
Right.
and God had sent me a doctor who could help me out, and
Absolutely.
he did.
Yes.
And then once that season was over, so was that medication.
Absolutely.
And now, if you was to have a one-on-one conversation with Adrienne, she might tell you I need something else. But
I would not.
that season's behind me, and
Mhm.
there is, for those who are dealing with this kind of thing, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And I think we see that in Adrienne. I think, you know people who people who deal with these kinds of things, I think they struggle in silence, and they sit at home and they cry, and they struggle, and they just try to make sense of it all. And I will tell
I
you,
can't imagine that. If I was going through what I was going through and I was alone, where
yeah,
would I be?
well,
You know?
yeah, yeah. Ultimately,
And
for a
I'll
lot of
have to
people, it ends
say,
differently.
Sure.
too, yeah,
Yeah,
right. That, when somebody's going through something and they maybe need a counselor or they maybe need medication and they keep denying themselves of that,
Mhm.
that also affects your spouse and
It
everybody in your
does.
home and everybody that you're around and your children and your coworkers and, everybody. Because I know, you know, in my darkest times, I mean, I can remember thinking, I am so sorry for my husband and my mom and the people who loved me, like that were just there to build me up. But how scary and how
Mhm.
um I'm sure at times frustrating and all the emotions that everybody around me was going through too. So, I think when you deny yourself of maybe you need a counselor, or maybe the doctor tells you you need medicine and the
Mhm.
counselor tells you that, it's not just yourself that is walking through this,
Yeah.
in my case, my family was going through it too. It was a
Mhm.
tough season for them as
Absolutely.
well.
yeah. I think God, I think God puts the right people in your life to shoulder those things
Hmm.
with you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But you have to allow that,
Yep.
you have to
You
allow
do.
that.
Sure.
Well, that's, I feel like that's almost the same as coming to church. You
Yeah.
have to allow that.
Yeah.
You want
Hmm.
that iron sharpening iron, even though it doesn't feel super comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to allow that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's hard, but everything that's good is hard. And you know, eh, I I just think about all the people that I know who are probably going to listen to this and say, this is so what I need to hear, that
Hmm.
it's okay to have these feelings. It's okay to battle. It's okay. There's help out there for them. And Trisha, I'm so thankful that you came to
Yes.
visit
Thank you so
us this
much.
evening.
Mm.
And
I'm sure we will get a lot of feedback as as you do and I do, every time we talk about this at church or
Yeah.
you preach a message about it, like, yesterday I had a dear, sweet woman at our church come up and talk about, Adam talked about holding your thoughts captive and then running them through the filters. I can never remember. Is that in, where is that? Philippians?
Philippians.
Yeah. Like,
Paul
is it
says
good?
run them through
Is it
the yeah.
lovely? Is it praiseworthy? Like, take that thought and maybe run it through those filters. Anyways, after that message, just somebody that is so precious to me came up and talked to me about, like, oh my gosh, this message meant so much to me. And she's a lady that I just look up to so much. And she's just, much older than me. And I just admire her. And I just think, what I want to say, what a right Christian woman is how I would explain it, if you know what I mean. And even she struggles with this. And so I would assume we will get a lot of feedback
Yeah.
after this because it's such an important thing to talk
It
about,
is.
and Christians don't really like to talk
It
about
is.
it a
We
lot,
need to do better.
I agree. I agree. But I think the fact that you said that you had, I said that I had, my pastor gave me permission to rest in it. I think giving people permission to
Yeah.
seek help is so important.
hmm
Yeah.
Just to be able to rest in that's okay.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
It's actually healthy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's healthier to do that than to not do it.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
when you when you come through this, when you come out on the other side, God gets the glory.
Absolutely.
What
So many gifts out
what
of it.
what a wonderful testimony
Mm.
to be able to say, look at what God brought me through.
Absolutely.
It was by his power and by his grace and by the people that he put in my life.
Yes.
And, it's a wonderful, wonderful blessing. It's all part of the story. It's all part of the process. But
hmm
um again, I think we would all be surprised if we could peel back the lid on everybody's head
Yeah.
and see
Yes.
what it is that we all go through and what we battle and the thoughts that we have. I think we would be surprised to find out how many good, godly men and women out there are battling with their thoughts. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Trisha, thank you for being
Yes,
here
thank you so
today.
much.
Welcome.
And I know you're a busy lady and you took time
Mhm.
out of your day to
Wow.
be here.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
And this is 2 hours that you spent with Adrienne today.
I
So
love it.
Yeah, me too.
so thank you so much. Thank
Absolutely.
you. And Adrienne, as always, thank you for being here.
Mhm.
And I know this isn't your favorite thing
Not
to
my
do,
jam, but that's okay.
but this is number 3 for you.
Yeah,
And
I'm gonna take a break for a minute.
yeah, I got some other
Yeah.
guests lined up for the
Mhm.
weeks following, but
Yeah.
anyways, I appreciate you coming back on here.
Yeah.
And thank you for being open and sharing your story.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add
Absolutely.
quickly. This is what happens when we're all ready to walk out the door at church. Somebody else starts talking, but I just, you talk about this dark season as a gift, but man, the gifts that have come out of this and how God uses everybody's yuckiness.
Yes.
We all know that, but even these terrible dark times, God uses them, and I can see that already,
Yeah.
and it's made me more empathetic to other people when they have mental health issues. I'm not just like, oh gosh, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. This is so difficult.
Yeah.
So a lot of good has come out of a lot of bad.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. Well, again, Trisha, thank you. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up this evening. To our viewers and our listeners tonight, I would say that if I could leave you with anything, it would be this: love each other, support each other, be an encourager, and lift others up.
And if you need help, get it.
And if you need help, get it. Amen. All right. Have a wonderful week, and we hope to see you back next week. Bye bye.